welcome back to Room 237 as I continue my marathon of Italian horror and Giallo films. And I've said before, here's a Giallo where I'm stumped on what to make of it. This one takes the cake on how not knowing what to make of it. This is known across the internet as one of the most bizarre, crazy, weird gialli ever made. It's not like there's a lot of craziness, like big stuff that happens. It's just weird in concept, and yeah, there is some weird stuff that happens. And it's 1968, so it's pre-Argento, early Giallo. But 1968's Death Laid an Egg. And this is the Cult Epics Blu-ray. There is I think a newer one that came out that's 4K for everyone that, complains if it's 99% perfect. But it does come with the reversible cover. I figured since the slipcase is American, I'll have the Italian one on this. Now, it was directed by Giulio Questi, if I pronounce that correctly, who I think is mostly known for Django Kills. And this was the second part of his unofficial trilogy of 3 films in completely different genres, which consisted of where is it? Well, it wasn't his first few, but there's Django Kill, If You Live, Shoot is the full title. Death Laid an Egg, and Arcana, I believe, is the third one, which is a horror drama film. Oh, he was also the screenwriter for The Possessed, which is a mystery and or giallo film that I'll be getting to at some point. But it was written by Franco Arcali and the director. And it stars Gina Lollobrigida, if I pronounce that correctly, which she's actually among the 3 to 5 still living high-profile actresses from the golden age of Hollywood, along with Sophia Loren and Leslie Caron. So that's actually kind of cool. Also stars, I hope I pronounced this correctly too, Jean-Louis Trintignant, who is actually a French actor, but he's been in a bunch of jail. He's still alive too. He was in So Sweet, So Perverse by Umberto Lenzi. He's been in a lot of films, especially in the Italian horror and giallo genres, which, just doing a quick look, So Sweet, So Perverse, I think he's mostly known for The Conformist. I'm not seeing anything. Is Playing with Fire a giallo? Comedy drama. I've been seeing that at the store and it looks like a giallo. But okay, I'm not really seeing any others, but he has been in a lot of films. But anyway, and also I'm gonna pronounce this Eva Allen, who's a Swedish actress, and she was also in Candy. She was also in Death Smiles on a Murderer, which Candy is also known as, or Ceremonia. Oh, that's the Legend of Blood Castle. Sorry if I seem out of it. Just I'm trying to think of what to make of this film, because this is a sort of, well, actually, it's 110 minutes, but it was released in America as Plucked, which I believe is 91 minutes. So it is horrifically cut. And actually, when you watch the actual 110-minute version, there's the cut parts are still in Italian. But if you have the subtitles on setting 2, it'll come on automatically. but it's also been known as A Curious Way to Love, Death Laid an Egg, Death Trap, and Plucked. Which, A Curious Way to Love, maybe if it was a little bit more straightforward, but Death Laid an Egg does make sense because the concept is so strange. And I read somewhere that there's some sort of story that took inspiration from this, because the story goes, death laid an egg, machines run at 5 o'clock, and there is some dialogue that includes that. I couldn't really find any other backstory on it, but the music was done by Bruno Maderna, and I know that name sounds familiar. He's known for his experimental and avant-garde music, which makes sense because this has the most bizarre score I've seen or I've heard for a Giallo. I mean, it's all pretty erratic. I mean, there are some slow violin parts that are very pleasant, but a lot of it is this very erratic, eccentric, almost sounds like plucking, like he's plucking the guitar strings or just hammering on a piano. Some of that music even incorporates into the plot that it gets the chickens up and moving. Because, yeah, that's the main thing of this plot, is that there's this married couple who don't really love each other, Marco and Anna. Marco is played by Trintignant. I know I'm butchering that name. And she's played by Lala Brigida. And her cousin, they say Gabrielle, but she's listed as Gabri. She comes to live with them, and he works for the actual association that is trying to do this whole thing with the chickens, but the chicken farm is on their property. And what they're trying to do is this biological engineering where they inject chemicals into the egg to create this new embryo and new breed of chicken that is headless, wingless, boneless, to create pretty much a giant hunk of meat. So it can be further distributed in like schools, hospitals, homes, and also cut out costs for workers of chicken farmers. And that's another thing. It's kind of a political satire. There's a lot of politics, with and it seems like pure satire. I mean, another one of the main characters, who I believe is played by Jean Sobieski, or Gene Sobieski, who I don't ever remember them saying his name, but I think it's Mondani, who's the head of marketing. Some of the logos he comes up with, it's almost as silly as Chris Hemsworth's logo scene in the piece of shit Ghostbusters movie. But, which, I just want to see if that is, Mondani is, yeah, it is Mondani. It tried to set up that there's this love affair between Marco and Anna, and supposedly Marco is a serial killer who likes to bring prostitutes. He goes to the same room at the same high-end hotel, takes prostitutes from the hotel bar up to his room, and he has this sadistic and homicidal sex with them. But that's very downplayed. We only get like a few scenes of that. It's mostly this kind of political satire and the sort of love triangle between Marco, Anna, and Gabrielle. And it did feel long-winded. There were parts that really bogged the pacing down. There's also this old friend of Marco's that pops up, who had his memory wiped out, and now he longs to remember his past, while Marco, he wants to give up on his life. He wants to run away with Anna. He wants to do away with this chicken business, which he hates the experiments that they're doing. doesn't want to be married to Anna, wants to run away with Gabrielle. I think I said run away with Anna first. He wants to forget his past, so we have that contrast. And I think that's all that plot point is there for. It kind of goes nowhere. Um, some of the things that help move the plot along, like there's this whole guest party scene where they play strangers locked in a room. Where they completely empty this room, and couples go in there and they do whatever they want. They see what happens, I guess, and truth comes out. Well, Mondani was her date, and Marco gets jealous, and when he brings Gabrielle into the room, the power goes out, everyone leaves, and then Anna finds this note that says Marco's deep secret. Those are sort of the main plot points at the beginning, but that's well into the movie. I mean, the scenes really sort of drag, or there's a lot in between. Um, there is some foreshadowing. Like, there's a scene where Marco and Anna's puppy named Blackie falls into the grinder that creates the chicken food. We don't see it, but it's heavily implied. I did have to take a lot of notes because there's not really much on this film. This seems to be another one of those forgotten ones. But all right, let's see what I got here. Also, like, he finds a scarf with like Zodiac killer symbols, which this came out in 1968. He found it in the chicken house, and then he's having ice cream with Gabrielle, and she's wearing the same scarf, and then he sees the same scarf somewhere else, and then it like ends. Like, that plot point's kind of forgotten about. The first hint that we get that Marco's having an affair with Anna is that she's typing out a guest list on a typewriter, and he really leans over her to type something, and he keeps looking over at Anna. Even the way the film opens, there's a lot of editing and cuts. Like, there's a lot of, like, the score and the editing is certainly some of the most eccentric parts of this film. It's like, it opens up with Marco in the hotel room with one of his ladies. It shows this other guy up close putting eye drops in. Another guy taping a plastic bag over his head to commit suicide. I'm guessing it's to show... I'm guessing that kind of fits with the motif of being locked in a room and there being truth. People kind of let everything out when they're alone. I don't know if that's what it is. And there's other weird scenes, like, how part of the movie was the chicken filing? Yeah, it does take a while to actually get to some of the more Giallo, like real obvious Giallo parts of the film. Like, I wish this thing would stop scrolling when I wanted to. Oh, and Anna makes some weird cryptic comments, like, about Gabrielle's body looking like it's made out of different parts, and how she wants to transform and change. There are some good camera choices, because, like, when early in the film when she's talking about Gabrielle's body, her and Marco are getting ready for bed, and they sleep in separate beds. And it's showing them change, and the camera is back to, and we see their bare back, but Marco's angle is like upward, and hers, I believe, is almost like she's laying down, but it's like this darkness behind her and like this weird lighting. So there is some experimental things that do kind of look cool. But, and then, you know, Marco's hired as getting marketing and publicity. That's why he's hooked up with Mondani. And Mondani's logos or his marketing, I think, is also a satire because all his ideas look like pop paintings of chickens in human scenarios, like as a businessman, a soldier, a mother protecting her kids, but the kids are like black and white photos, almost like a Monty Python animation. Um, there's also this weird sequence where after Marco and Gabrielle have ice cream, she talks about her parents' death. And as she's talking about it, the editing cuts from the car's grill view going fast down the street, fire, her dead dad laying face down on the road, and her bloody mom walking across the road, and the sound of tires screeching at each cut. But then that doesn't really go anywhere. I'm guessing to say why she lives with them, and also that she's afraid of Anna as well. We also see that the note that was left at the party only seems to, because we don't see what they read at first. Later on, it comes back to it. The note only seems to say that Marco frequents prostitutes at a hotel. And that's when Anna decides that she wants to look enough like a prostitute to blend in and then get chosen by him to catch him. And she needs Anna's help to perfect it. And then it's like an hour 16 minutes where we see him with another hooker, where he's, he ties her, he gags her, then he's drawing all over her with lipstick. The only time we see him smile in the film, and then we see him slit her throat. So that's an hour 16 minutes in. And that's when Anna discusses that she wants to dress up like one to catch him. And then there's like another political scene where chicken farmers are throwing rocks at the villa, saying that they're threatening union representation. That's when we get the scene where Blackie falls into the grinder. And also there's a long sequence where it shows Marco looking into the grinder and seeing all the things move. Again, foreshadowing something. But then we also get a montage of actual chicken workers. I'm guessing the scene is real, but like killing, cutting the heads off, and defeathering chickens. I'm guessing to show what's more harmful or what's more useful. These are the people that will be cutting out of jobs, I guess. But then, God, I wish this thing would stop. This thing's a pain in the ass sometimes. And then right before I get to spoilers, I guess to get any kind of hook to those that are listening, Anna goes to the hotel room, or goes to the hotel bar to check out the kind of prostitutes that are there. And she goes to ask one for a light, for a cigarette. And when the woman turns, it was the second prostitute that we saw. So there, she's still alive. What's happening? Because this is a Giallo kind of like Hatchet for the Honeymoon, although that's a much better movie, where, okay, we know who the killer is. We're seeing the film through his eyes. And of course, it's 1960s, so it's that Pre-Argento where it mainly focuses on the wealthy, sort of their perversions, immorality, and wrongdoings, love affairs, and whatnot. But like Hatchet for the Honeymoon, we know right from the beginning who the killer is. So what's the twist going to be? And I will say the ending does make it worth it, kind of. But so now we see the prostitute is still alive. What's going to happen? So, can I recommend it? If you love Giallo and you have to see all of them, sure. But if you're more into like the straightforward Argento, Sergio Martino Giallo, not very experimental or avant-garde type Giallo, I don't think you're gonna enjoy it as much. But yeah, I don't know if this is a rant or not. I guess I'm kind of indifferent because I really don't know what to think of it. But with that, I'm gonna get into spoilers. So at one point in the film, and this is after Blackie dies, and we see him really looking at that food grinder. He goes to buy Anna a plane ticket for some event in Amsterdam, which he then goes into his office and burns the plane ticket. And if you look at the ticket, it says Latanza. So, for all you Goodfellas fans. And so that also further cements, okay, because there's been several scenes where he professes his love and longing to run away with Gabrielle, to Gabrielle. So he's seen the grinder, he bought her the plane ticket, then got rid of it, and then he goes to the hotel room, which I believe that's when we see the second hooker. I could be wrong on the placement of those, but he bought her a ticket so no one will know where she is, and he set up his alibi. After Anna and Gabrielle see the second hooker who gave him, who lit her cigarette, they talk about how she looks like she's seen pain and suffering that no one else has. So then, and that's more political stuff about, but the association, as they're called, to the public or to investors or whoever. And then Marco goes in this room where chickens are standing in file cabinets. And at first, I thought that was like setting up for more publicity, like a photo shoot, which would have been much better than the logos we saw earlier. But no, I guess they keep each different kind of chicken in like a filing box or whatever. Again, I think that's more satire. But eventually, Marco gets a call from home saying, "You got to get home right now." The first batch of chickens from these new biologically engineered eggs have hatched, and we catch glimpses of them at first, and they look like huge white lumps, barely any feathers, with dark red and purple veins, and they're just kind of writhing and shaking. It's kind of eerie looking. I will say that. Then they call the guy who has been administering the chemicals to these eggs. He and Anna are very excited. The future is here. Marco is disgusted. He wants them killed and destroyed. So then they leave, but Marco stays behind, and he grabs like a sledgehammer or a pickaxe or something, and he kills them. And we do get like an actual good look at him. And I mean, when the guy picks them up with their feet not moving, it kind of, looks like a Muppet. But yeah, they're kind of grotesque looking. No head, no wings. He says the bones are very small or brittle. But when he hits them with that object, we see some blood, we see some guts spilling out. Okay, decent, especially for everything else that we've seen. And if these were people instead of chickens, I would say just how they look is kind of Cronenberg looking. So then we see Marco. He's doing something to like the grinder with the wrench. He does something to the railing to make it loose and faulty. But then he gets chewed out by his bosses for murdering the chickens, the newer ones. And he goes into this one room, I think it's his office, and he listens to a recording of his murder. And that's when we get the voiceover of, like the machines come on at 5 o'clock. It's what I want. It's impossible, but I gotta do it. But then we see him go home and he turns the machines on anyway, like right before 5. Gabrielle sees him and screams and runs off. And then at this time we see Mondani, because earlier, like shortly before, Anna dons like this pinkish orangish wig, some lingerie, calls the hotel to say when he's, when Marco has checked in. And at that time, Mondani has checked into the hotel under Marco's name. So she goes there, and then that's when we see him listening to his recording and then doing the thing with the railing. Then we see Mondani at a hotel bathroom, and he's got bloody scratches on his face. And when Marco gets up to the hotel room, he finds Anna with a slit throat. And so that's when he starts to clean up. And as he's cleaning, he gets flashbacks to the past prostitutes who, with their slit throats, but removing their gag, like they're still alive and it was all play or role playing. And so then when the cops show up to the hotel, they start saying, hey, we got a call about a dead woman in this room. Camera pans over, and there's all three hookers are there saying, oh, I've been killed in that room so many times, or I got killed there 3 times in the last however long. Such a nice guy. I did forget to mention, some of this does remind me of American Psycho, because it is this kind of stoic rich guy, even though it's implied he has no money. Anna does, that's why he married her. But when he kills the second prostitute, he goes up to the mirror and like the camera's from behind at like an angle, and he like smears the blood kind of like around his face. I thought possibly the best shot in the whole movie. But then the cops get up to the room, they find no body. It's because even though he couldn't push Anna into the grinder, he can still dispose of her body in there, and it'll still seem like she went to Amsterdam. But as he's getting ready to do that, there's this scene where he's touching his bracelet, and it's like a flashback to, I guess he's figuring out that Gabrielle and Mondani do have a thing, and he's the one that probably killed Anna and is trying to set him up, because I think Mondani has the same bracelet. But he falls for his own trap, and Marco goes through the tampered railing into the grinder. So then we get the scene with Mondani and Gabrielle talking about how Mondani was the one that left the note. He's the one that checked in under his name, killed Anna, because he knew about the plane ticket and how that was Marco's alibi and everything, and how Gabrielle also wants to get away, and they both want the villa, the money, the farm, everything. But then they go out to the chicken farm and they see Anna's body. Of course, it's not supposed to be there. It's supposed to be found by the cops, because he also tipped the cops after he killed her. And as they're standing there looking at her body, that's when the cops show up. Now I thought, oh, okay, now we're going to get the good Giallo ending where no one gets away with anything. They all go to jail. Either everyone ends up dead or in jail. No one gets anything that they want. But no, they're able to say, because Marco's body isn't there, that Marco did it, and the cops believe him, and they start looking around, and the guy says, hey, get the name and photo out in like an APB. And it ends with the guy cracking open an egg and sipping out of it, which really does kind of is a great shot to wrap this whole movie up. I mean, I'm really stumped on this one. I'm really not sure what to make of it. It's definitely an odd, bizarre Giallo. I highly doubt I'll ever see one like it. I don't know if I could put this in the worst, because there are more good things to say about it than many other ones, of course. But, or not many, but I mean, I wasn't a fan of the score, some of it, but was like the real erratic parts. Even though I got used to it, I wasn't really a fan of it. The acting is just fine. Even the concept, okay, early 60s, not early 60s, I mean early Giallo, with, love triangles, this guy that's a serial killer, we already know that, sort of Hatchet for the Honeymoon kind of setup. But there is the twist that he's not a serial killer at the end. And even setting it in like this chicken farm, but I think it's so wrapped up in its own political satire that it almost kind of loses its focus, in that the real Giallo elements are few and far between. And yeah, I did feel it was kind of long-winded, and the pacing was kind of slow. It definitely not one of my favorite Giallos. I mean, it's far from the worst, but it is more towards the bottom. And yeah, ultimately, I don't really know if what to make of it. And I think that's a common consensus on it. But anyway, that's 1968's Death Laid an Egg. And I've still got plenty more Italian horror and Giallo films, especially Giallo films, to get to. So stay tuned for those, and thank you for watching.